think it's the first time, or maybe the second time, with my reader glasses. And it's a lot of trouble switching between them, looking at the screen, looking at you guys. Welcome. I'm very excited to see all of you. Let me switch this. Let's see. No, I want mirror. Does this work? Yes. So I will, as our tradition is, I will update you on the state of SuriCata. You have heard from Philippe that there will be a CTF. There are, I think, at least 2 flags hidden in it's not quite hidden, part of my presentation. Look for flags. So I will get started. So I will go over what we have done in the past year since the SuriCon edition, the virtual one that we did last year. Go over what the plans are for the coming year, and then sort of summarize a state of SuriCata. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the founders of OISF, together with Matt, who is in the room here, and Will Metcalf, who is not here at the conference. The 3 of us set up this whole idea with SuriCata and the OISF, and I'm the only one who is still actively working. Matt, as a board member, is still involved. This is now how many years ago? 15 or so. So we've been doing this a while. Our hairs have changed color. Our reader glasses have have joined us. So my role is essentially to lead the development team, and I think I do about 50-50 of development and myself and leading the team and doing reviews and mentorship and all that kind of stuff. I live in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I'm born and raised in the Netherlands, and saw a nice picture, or Giuseppe took a nice picture of me here in Madrid. There's no flag here. I have some socials. I'm not as active on social media anymore. I don't actually like it very much anymore, but so if you want to connect, these are my socials. So let's start by looking back at the past year. I want to focus first on contributors, talk a bit about how we track the roadmap, a bit about releases, an update on how the Rust work is going, and some thoughts about our security policy. So for those of you who attended the virtual talk I did last year, maybe you remember this slide. It was an attempt to try to put a little bit of gamification into contributing, and I think it actually worked well. I've heard some people who will, actually do a bit more to try and rise on the leaderboard. So I will go over sort of the results of this first for SuriCata 7 and then for the master branch, or 8, the upcoming SuriCata 8. And so for SuriCata 7, we've tracked these organizations as contributing. Stamas is at the top in this list, so thank you, Eric and team. Then on the individual side, again, Eric. So Eric, please stand up. Thank you. And then also we track sort of so how much of the work on SuriCata is done by OISF, the OISF team. And I think this is important because there's lots of contributions and we really like them and want to highlight them. But also, like, for those companies that pay into OISF, this is what you enable, right? That we can do a lot of development work. And so for those companies that support us, or those who are thinking about supporting us, your money really goes towards development, yeah, we essentially have two goals here. We want to have more contributions, but also we would like to expand the team, which would kind of grow the share of OISF of the work. So we want to expand in both directions, I suppose. So for 8, these are the companies so far. 8 is not yet released, of course. So thank you to Corelight. Who's in the room from Corelight? Thank you. And then on the individual level, Giuseppe, he told me, where are you, Giuseppe? Yeah. Please stand up. Thank you. Giuseppe has been doing a lot of work, and there's still more coming, so I'll wait so you can take your picture. And again, here about 80, so there's different ways of counting how much of the work is done by OISF. The score is on the website. I don't know, maybe someone can put the link to the leaderboard in the Discord channel so everyone can check it out. But there is a scoring, it's visible. It's a function of code lines and whether or not you reference a ticket, which we really want to encourage. So it tries to encourage the kind of behavior that we would like to see in contributions. I always also present just a list of, this is just out of Git. So this is by Git commit count since November 23. Jason Taylor, I know you're here. Where are you? You're hiding. Okay. Well, all the way over there. So thanks, Jason. And of course, thank you to everyone who is contributing. Of course, there's more than just code contributions. There are people who are helping in the forums. There are people who are helping in Discord. And there's people who play other roles in the community by building tools and other things. So there's a lot of people who are part of this community, and I'm very grateful for all your contributions. So thank you all. Finally, we had 2 outreachy interns last year, Daniel and Hadika. I don't think they are in the room. No? Okay. And we are about to start a new round of outreachy internship with a new candidate. So again, thank you for everyone who is contributing. It's really, really great. Some of the major improvements that we've been making together with the community over the last year. Lots of protocol additions, WebSockets, the initial work of LDAP, which Giuseppe did based on the work by Pierre. I saw Pierre somewhere. Pierre's Rust crate. There's a lot more to be done there, so that's work in progress, but there's a great first start. We have SDP, we have expanded SIP. There's ARP decoder and logger, which is also done by Giuseppe. We have DNS over HTTPS. So there's a lot that's already been done, and hopefully everyone has some time to test with it. We've made some additional steps in the SMB performance work. SMB performance obviously being an issue for many people in larger deployments. And so hopefully it will be getting a bit better. I have some contacts with people with such deployments where we can start testing the effects, and hopefully it is really noticeable. Jason has been working mostly on the plugin API work, and there will be a talk, I don't know, one of these days by Luca on NDPI support in SuriCata, and that will be using that plugin API. So we're making steps towards a good plugin API, which a lot of that work also benefits the effort to improve the library. Then there's a major project that we are doing based on conversations we had a while ago on the Lua revamp. So essentially we realized Lua is kind of nice, but the integration in SuriCata is not so great. And so there was a lot of discussion. And so this, we've made many improvements. And I think Chris Wakelin, where are you? I saw you there. You're going to present some results of that playing with that work. So looking forward to that. In general, there have been also more iterative improvements to like HTTP2 and TLS, various new keywords and extracted fields. Then we have a lot of work in the detection area. So for example, integer support in the rule language has been improved a lot, and also the code has been cleaned up and unified. So there's a lot more expressiveness there. There are smaller things like you can now, with an IP reputation set, can just check if a IP address is a member of is in the set at all. It was a requested feature. We have added a lot of DNS detection keywords, which I think was also partly done through the outreach work. There's additional SMB keywords. TLS I mentioned. Lukash, where are you? Where's Lukash? This side. I still don't see you. Is he not here? Anyway, so Lukash on our team has been working hard on the DPDK side. I think one of the things I personally care a lot about is the power save mode. So many people who know DPDK know that it spins all your CPU cycles 100% all the time, even if it's doing nothing. So he added the support for what I think it's called poll mode in DPDK, where you can actually, where it switches between saving power or using all your CPU based on how busy the traffic is. And that is, you know, we're in a time where saving energy is not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm happy with that. There have been other DPDK improvements as well. So these are, I think, the major improvements that are coming in 8 and that we have been working on in the last year that I wanted to highlight. So shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about how we track roadmap. So many of you know that we use Redmine. We have been using it for a long time. Many of you don't really like it, and I understand it. The problem is for us is to move to something else is a major major effort because we don't want to lose all the history that we have in Redmine. And actually, for the team, it works pretty well. Not everyone agrees. Andreas, you cannot speak, can you? Andreas is virtual. One of the problems I think we have with it, so the Redmine has a roadmap view, but one of the problems with it is that it's very cluttered in terms of what it shows and how you sort of get a quick overview of the high-level roadmap. And so we've been working on a way to try and address that. So this would be a view of the beta, upcoming 8 beta release, and you can see if you, I don't know if you can read the list, but it's a mix of big things, small things, minor things, and so just if you realize that this list is 700 items long, there is no way to get a quick view into what actually we are planning to do on a high level. And so what we started to do is we created a new ticket type in Redmine. We call it the story. And this ticket type is describing a high-level use case that or a high-level goal that we want to pursue. And this ticket will then be targeted towards the final version of a major version, and will be related to the actual tickets that do contain the actual work, like the details. And we use the blocked by relationship. That's kind of a technical detail. Using the Redmine API, we can then export this, and Jason, maybe you can post these links in the Discord so that everyone can check them out. But this is the highest level view that is on the right side of the screen right now, and shows sort of the highest level goals that we have for 8. And then we can also show you a little bit more detail by showing the blocked by tickets and their status. So right now you can see that this is on some test website URL, but one of our goals is to integrate this into the Suricata IO website, and so you can much more easily see what we are planning to do, and also often managers would like to see this, so you can share it with your manager and things like that. So this is, but it will also help us, because if you look at a list of 700 tickets, it's very easy to just pick whatever you want to do and not necessarily what you sort of agreed to do. So we hope to stay more on target with this tracking as well. So we're finalizing this, and we'll publish it, and then on the roadmap, the actual contents of the roadmap, Friday we will have, of course, the brainstorm, community brainstorm session here. So just a quick overview of what we did last year. We did these releases for 6 and 7. We did libhcp releases and Suricata update releases. I think at least the Suricata and libhcp releases probably were all security releases. I'll talk a bit more about security after this. One thing that I always like to show is sort of how much code changes and documentation changes there have been. So this is only from the Suricata repository for the master branch. So this contains code and documentation. So you can see that we are still working towards reducing C lines of code and replacing them by Rust lines of code. Also that generally with Rust we can express it much more compactly than with C, so that's nice. I always feel that we don't do enough documentation, and definitely this is true for certain areas, like the developer documentation is a continuing pain point for us. But you can see that there is definitely an effort to expand documentation. And I think if you currently go to read the docs and you export our docs to PDF, you get an almost 600-page document. So I think it is quite elaborate. But it is also tricky because it's such a large document that keeping it up to date is actually hard. So anyone who wants to help, or if you just run into a problem or into an inaccuracy, please just point it out to us so we can address it. I'm not reading the documentation myself every day, and so it will go stale a little bit every once in a while. So when was it, Pierre? Was it 2016 that you presented the Rust integration? I think so. So Pierre Chifflier introduced the idea of starting Rust integration into Suricata. He had a presentation about this, and to his surprise, we accepted, even though we did not initially accept his initial work because he was so far ahead of us technically that we didn't actually understand what his code did. And so we had to redo part of it to sort of learn along the way. But we've come a long way, and so every year I update this slide and show you that we're now very close to 20% Rust code, and we'll just keep going. For now, our goal is to go to handling all untrusted input with Rust. That is still not the reality, so there will be a lot of more work to do. But there is a nice progress, I think. It's also quite relevant, and I'm very happy that Pierre set us on this path, because we can see that there is starting to be a significant shift in thinking about unsafe languages. And so this was just published a few weeks ago. The CISA, the US department or whatever agency, I think, for cybersecurity, they published this recommendation that every software project will publish a roadmap by early 26, I think, of how they will move away from unsafe languages to memory-safe languages. And of course, Rust is one of the options there, and since we have chosen to use Rust, we'll stick with that. But it shows that it's important to take this seriously, and even though this is just a recommendation, I feel the writing is on the wall, the sentiment is changing, and we just need to start thinking about, as an industry, about not using unsafe languages anymore. And so I'm very thankful for Pierre putting us on this path. Right, this is part of what they said, and the recommended action: publish a memory safety roadmap by January 1st, 2026. So yeah, good luck to everyone who's in these unsafe environments. All right, so one of the other things we discussed and decided on was changing our handling of security issues. So essentially, before we did this new policy, our policy was we have security tickets, but we don't publish advisories. We don't ask for CVE IDs and things like that. If someone reports a vulnerability to us, then we will use their CVE ID if they request one, and otherwise we don't really care about it. I think as part of just taking security more serious, we wanted to change this. Another reason was that we saw that many companies were using very much out-of-date Suricata versions, and once there was a CVE ID, they were suddenly very interested in updating. So we figured that adding our own, or requesting our own CVEs would be a good idea to help the technical people in organizations get time budget, essentially, to update Suricata in their organizations. It seems that we have been riding this wave where the entire industry has suddenly decided to start requesting far more CVE IDs. I think the Linux kernel is currently requesting, I don't know how many per week, and it's, the whole system seems to be completely grinding to a halt, in part due to lack of funding at certain US agencies. But we have been doing this, and so we've created 17, so we've chosen to use GitHub for this, GitHub as our CVE numbering authority, I guess. And so we've created 17 of these advisories so far. And so as part of the process in GitHub, you can then request a CVE ID, and that has been working very well for us. We then also still track a security ticket in our Redmine, and we'll add both a link to the advisory at GitHub and to the CVE ID in that security ticket. And this is an example of what this looks like for our last release. So you can see the CVE ID. You can see that we at the bottom as a comment, we add the GitHub advisory link, and then there's some additional information so to cross-reference with code and other systems. So one thing you may notice if you see this list, this is not the full list, but it is a list of the most current tickets, is that there are a lot of issues where we have assigned the severity critical. And this is an area where we think we need to refine our security policy. It's currently in our GitHub as a security policy. It's documented. We modeled it after OpenSSL, I think. But we feel like there's too many things that are critical, and then we're thinking, well, okay, if this is critical, what would happen if we get an actual remote code execution in Suricata? How would we express that? And so one of the things that we want to do, but we haven't really started this process yet, is refine the severity levels to probably reserve critical for something like code execution and use high for the things that we currently label critical. But this still needs a lot of discussion, and but this is probably changing because we feel it's not completely correctly reflecting the issues. This is kind of just a reiteration of what I said last year, but in practice we have for a long time been doing major releases every 2 years, even though we stated we would try to do it every year, but we never made that reality. So we have updated our support cycle or development cycle goals. This is still the goal, so we will publish a major release every 2 years, support that major branch for 3 years, so that there's always 1 year overlap between the current and the past major release. That 1 year should give you the time to upgrade while staying fully supported. But what we see so far is that that still there are far too many companies that stay behind, that run outdated versions. And so we want to understand better why upgrading is painful, and we want to try and integrate, or how do you say this, try to get you involved earlier with the testing so that we can make this process easier. I think I had something more about that to say, but that will be on a later slide, I suppose. Challenges. I think releases still take too much time out of our work schedule. So doing a release essentially means tracking what the work is and planning a good time, deciding which parts which should be fixed, doing all the administrative things like creating the tickets and the security advisories, and then there is a lot of other tasks that are just the practical side of doing releases. We have been improving a little bit there, I think, but I would still like to see us improve a lot more there. We're using more automation, and so that is helpful, but ideally, at some point, we get to a point where doing a release is just a very small amount of time for one person, maybe one meeting before it to decide if we're ready, and then it should just be a click of a button. On the QA side, we still have fairly limited scope of what we actually test on an automated way. There is still also too much of a reliance on my personal CI setup that I've grown over time, and I cannot part with it, so I keep adding it. So this is definitely an area where we want to expand in features and scope of what we are testing. And we want to actually ideally make sure that there's no more embarrassing bugs like we've had, I don't know when this was, but IPS mode, web server, client, run AB, Apache Bench, and the connection would time out. It would just not work. It's like, okay, that's too embarrassing. We should make sure to not have that ever again. And so this particular test now exists, but we need far more tests like this to catch the low-hanging fruit. All right, how am I doing on time? Let's look ahead a little bit. It's interesting so as I was preparing this, I was, for the first time, really thinking about, oh, we have to start thinking about what SuriCata 9 is going to look like. I mean, we are so focused on SuriCata 8, which we want to release in the early summer of next year, that I kind of forgot that we need to start planning for the next round. So yes, I will go over these things. Security policy, new roadmap tooling should be completed, and QA improvements. So these are kind of the high-level ideas. So towards 8.0, we want to release the first beta version. I think it's currently set for April 1st. We'll probably move it to a slightly more convenient date to announce something, but early April is our goal. And what we want to do this time is actually sort of, well, not sort of, I think the goal is to feature freeze it at that moment. So in the past, we've done beta releases or release candidates and then made large changes afterwards and then called that final. And no one, some of the things were not tested well enough, and no one was expecting it. So we want to be a bit more structured about this and release that beta release and then talk to the integrators and the rule writers and say, this is the feature set as we see it right now. Can you please test if it works in your scenarios? Can you see if your rules work or if the output still makes sense? And then we have a couple of months to address any major issues that come up, and then we will go to the release candidate and to the final. And I talked to a few individuals here. Well, this is a bit for us a new ground to do it like this. So maybe the timeline is a bit too aggressive, and we'll have to see how that works out. But this is the goal. One of the things that you may see is that there is over 300 tickets still open, 360 something, I think. That's too many. We won't be able to finish all of these. That's pretty clear. So the ones that I mentioned, put on the screen with the priority high, those will probably be addressed. Some of them are already in review. But out of the normal category or even low priority category, we will probably not be able to do many of them. So if there's things in there that you really care about, please update the ticket with your use case. Of course, if you can actually do the work or have someone do the work and contribute, that would actually be great. But there will be many rounds of retargeting of tickets in the next months, and you will start seeing that list shrink, not because we complete the work, but we just decide that it's not feasible to do it for 8. So we have a number of longer-term goals, and these are already things we want to do for 8, but they will definitely continue. Extendability, so plugins and the library, and also the Lua effort are things that we are targeting for 8, but there will be much more work afterwards, so that is a longer-term goal. One of the other long-term goals is that we want parity between what we can output in the logs and what we can match on in the rule set. This is out of balance right now, and so we want to address this for a couple of protocols in 8, and then after that we will have to work on other protocols. The rustification, if that's a word, of handling of untrusted input will continue, as I just said, and something will be improved. I don't know what I was thinking there. Improved Lua, maybe? Everything will be better. Oh, I guess I would have more details. So the extendability is what I mentioned, library, plugins, and Lua. The Lua work is progressing quite nicely. The sandboxing is done. Joe Johnson did this for us. And the vendoring is now done, so you can now now everyone who uses this Suricata version has the same Lua, so we really hope that, for example, the rule writers from Proofpoint will actually want to use it now that they have a predictable environment to work against. One of the things that we still have to do a lot with is expanding the features that we expose to this Lua language, because since we now locked it down, you can no longer use external modules because they're very unsafe, and at least many of them. And so it is now up to us as the engine writers to expose features from Suricata to the rule language, to the Lua language. And so there's currently a pull request by me on exposing dataset functionality to the scripts, for example, but there will be many, many more things. And at this point, we're kind of trying to figure out what the idiomatic way is to expose Suricata functionality to the Lua scripting. And then it's just a matter of doing the work, essentially. Yeah, so I mentioned the detection and the log keyword parity already. On the protocol side, so as I mentioned, GSEP has been working on LDAP. This was, I think, the most requested feature. And as I mentioned before, this is also not complete yet, and it's a great start, but we need more. So there is a lot of work to be done there still before 8. So the 8 timeline, as I mentioned, early April we'll get our beta out. That should be the feature freeze. Then early June, release candidate, and then hopefully early July we'll get the final out. It's a pretty aggressive timeline, so we'll see how it goes, but we really don't want to get into a situation again where we were in the past, where at some point just all the deadlines were very fluid, and we took another half year. And so this is what we're going to try. So I have a request to everyone who is a Suricata integrator or a rule writer. Carve out some time in April, early May, and try the beta, right? And try it in a way that, like, what if this release is the next major version? And try it and tell us what's wrong with it. We've been in touch with people upgrading from 6 to 7, and there were all kinds of surprises to them, but also to us. And we all agreed that we should have done this earlier. And so I really hope that we can get this as a community. And I understand that for some of the companies it means that you have to budget time or that you have to plan ahead. And so that's what we try to do here, is give you enough notice that in April, hopefully, you can spend some time on this. So that would be my request to you. And then 9. It feels really strange to already think about 2027, but in our 2-year rhythm or cadence, that is where Suricata 9 is planned, and we will start working on that by planning and soon. And the input from the roadmap sessions from last October, the virtual session, and the in-person session here next Friday will be very important to that, to our goals for 9. It's not quite a room, but I guess there's one thing you haven't heard me talk about at all, and it's what everyone talks about these days. So what about Suricata and AI? So my position is at this point still that for Suricata itself, right now, doing AI in the engine in the real-time packet-by-packet level is still, I'm not convinced yet that we are there. Also, our team is not a team of data scientists, and we also have no data. So if people have ideas about how AI may have to be a part of Suricata, then I'm very interested in hearing your opinions, and maybe if we can collaborate on the side of data or on models or things like that. What I currently see as a future, so how I currently see SuriCata and AI is mostly that SuriCata produces a lot of data that you would use in post-processing. That has been done a number of times. We've seen talks about this for a number of years already at SuriCon, and I think that's still a great way to work with AI and SuriCata. We have started to see people saying, well, you know, I have this really small model and it can inference in like 10 milliseconds and is that fast enough for SuriCata? And we're like, well, no, not really, because, you know, we have maybe 1 microsecond for a packet and not 10 milliseconds, but it's getting closer. And maybe my knowledge is not as complete, so maybe it's even closer than I know. So I'm very interested in hearing how you might use AI inferencing in SuriCata with models that are produced elsewhere, or different ML or AI things that I'm just not very familiar with. So I'm very interested in hearing from the community, and maybe the brainstorm session would be a great opportunity, or just hit me or anyone else from the team up with your thoughts. So in general, we're not data scientists, as I mentioned, but actually our team is mostly not security people at all. We're mostly just engineers. And so we need to hear from you what you need in SuriCata, what you run into, what your problems are. So we rely very heavily on your input and on your ideas and feedback, and the brainstorm sessions and feature tickets and other types of conversations are great for sharing that experience that you have. So if you want SuriCata to do something that it can do yet, then of course you can open a feature ticket and you can hope that we do it for you or for the community. But you can also try to channel your inner Eric or your inner Giuseppe and maybe just do the work and contribute it back to the project. We are very interested in working with anyone who wants to add new features, optimizations, and such. And many of the big things that we actually have done have been contributed. For example, our e-vlog was originally done by Tom DeCanio, who was working at Pulse at the time, later FireEye. And so that thing that is now such a core feature of SuriCata started as a community contribution. The Hyperscan integration was done by Intel. Lots of features were done by Eric, and Rust was initially introduced by Pierre. So there is a lot of room to add features to us. We are not a group of people who only want to do it if we invented it ourselves. We are very, very open to outside help. So how do you get a feature in? Well, you know, you can do the work and work with us, and that's maybe the quickest way. You can try and pay someone, and you can also have a professional service contract with OISF, so we can do it, but you pay us, and then, of course, we can fast-track certain things. It still needs to fit the roadmap, right? If we disagree with the feature, then it won't work. You can try to just convince the team and see if that helps get things rolling. In every case, we need tests, good descriptions of what the use case is, and expected outcomes. So what is the state of SuriCata? In my view, OISF is healthy. Kel will do an update on Friday, I think. And so she will explain a bit more about the state of the foundation, but I can already, spoiler, it's healthy. I think the SuriCata team is doing very well. We're very happy with everyone who is on the team, and I think we're supporting each other in a very good way. And overall, my feeling about the community is that it's working very well. It's a very professional community. Everyone's very well behaved and friendly towards each other, and helping newbies on the forums and on the chat and everything. And I'm just very proud that everyone comes together in such a great way. even if in the world things are getting a little bit crazier, we still, in this professional space, can treat each other with respect. And I'm very, very happy about that. So thank you all for being so wonderful. I will close with a call for help. We need two things. Well, one thing, data. Test data and deployments, essentially. So currently, we are very interested in seeing if anyone has HTTP3 decrypted traffic. You found some?
No, I want some.
Oh, you want Philippe wants some. So if you have something to share, or you have a product that you know that can do this decryption and present the traffic unencrypted, please let us know. Multi-stream SMB is on our roadmap as well, and it's quite complicated, but so if there's more traffic that you can share, which is of course a little bit tricky often, then please let us know. And so we have no large deployment as a team, and so if anyone has a way to collaborate on your large deployment, maybe direct access is not an option in most cases, but some way in which we can give you test builds, you can give us results, things like that, that would be very, very welcome. So if anyone is interested in collaborating on that, then please reach out to us. And we can set that up with NDAs and all kinds of legal things if that's necessary, so that you're protected as well. So I don't know if there's time for questions, but any questions? No one? Well, I'll be here all week, so if you have something you want to discuss or ask, just come up to me and we'll. Oh, is there something? No? Okay. Well, thank you.